All right. So, if there is any other question in the chat about our not recorded, apparently, review of the DiVincenzo's notebook, then let me know and I can pause. But right now, what we're going to do is we are going to go through this a little portion of a quantum safe cryptography. And what I want to do is remind you that this is part of that one of the courses as well. And I'd like to talk about it before we keep going. Ali or what's his name? Fabian, if you could let me know when Anna joins, then I will pause and help her with her setup. Make sure that she has her what's that called? Her background. I don't think that I'm not sure if the system sent it to her, but all right. So let's talk about quantum safe cryptography. So you may or may not know that well, one of the reasons why there's a lot of buzz about quantum is because there are some concerns about it being a bigger risk to our current encryption protocols. A lot of the financial systems uses RSA and different protocols and algorithms. Not just one, but at different levels um, of their security and risk strategies that could be exposed. VPN, for example, does use that protocol. But let's talk about why and how would we get there and what the concern is. And so the the point is that right now they could break your encryption and then decrypt later what they pulled. And so it's called harvest now and decrypt later, like keeping it in your closet until you find the way to unlock it. And this quantum safe cryptography, or QSC, is talking about the different schemes that could potentially withstand the attacks from quantum and classical computing systems. And so this is an exact quote. Quantum resistant or post-quantum cryptography is the term. Most people are referring to it as post-quantum because cryptography and even NIST talks about some of these different protocols and which ones they recommend as an output to a couple of competition a couple of years ago, which I think is great that there is such a mesh between the beauty of industry, defense, and academia more and more in quantum, especially. I am seeing it. Blend more. And so there are three other modules that you can go through to understand maybe hashing, symmetric key algorithms, cryptographic hash functions, and asymmetric key algorithms. But we're going to leave that for a different time. Maybe for a happy hour, if you guys wanted to talk about that. We have some really prepared folks from the security industry that would probably love to have a conversation about this. But the reason why we're talking about the different types of traditional cryptographic primitives is to understand which ones would be quote unquote affected by a quantum the ability to decrypt that kind of polynomial um, information. And so I don't know if you know, but the Shor's algorithm is based on asymmetric cryptography, and this is the one that most folks are looking at with a concern. So what are these symmetric crypto systems based on? Factoring and discrete logarithms. I'm not going to get into the math of it because you will be able to see that in detail. So the point is that we have it's a multiplication between two very long numbers. And just like in the previous example, we have a private key and a public key. So the instructions that the astronaut took over between Alice and Bob had to do with the public key. The private key in that case would be no, I said it backwards. So the instructions are the private key, and then the public key is that, what they're doing and how they're taking care. In our current system, it's just a factorization of numbers and being able to find which numbers kind of through a factorization result in the multiplication of a very long prime number is what we're trying to find. And so quantum computers being able to do that more rapidly would lead us to being able to expose these systems and these secrets. So this is why we're talking about quantum safe cryptography schemes. There are some papers that are linked that you'll be able to read if you want to go. So let's talk. So what about the other asymmetric ones, right? And the point here is that there are some current hashing protocols that could be enhanced, that should be enhanced, and later, I'm not sure if it's going to be later this week or next week, we're going to talk about what are the recommendations worldwide for this, meaning what? In our attempt to reach PQZ post-quantum cryptography and be able to prepare for a feel of the potential risk of our data, what can we do midterm, long term, and what is truly accessible to the everyday individual that may have a business or that might not have such crazy infrastructure to have everything secured through a quantum computer today, right? And so here is something that you could do for a midterm solution. If you are not in security, this may not mean much to you. And because of time, I'm not going to go into the details of what, the specifics of hash lengths and what that means. But it's really important to know that it's not like we're completely exposed. There are some things that we can do right now to fortify these existing algorithms. And if you've worked in industry with some of the complexity of where the data sits, where are your assets, how are you applying these algorithms on top of the assets? Is it easy to just come and say, let me add a PQC and it's not always as straightforward. So here we have quantum algorithms and impacts to cryptography. And what I want you to know is that there are multiple stages to this. Computational complexity is one of the key ones. Now, we just talked about factoring, and here is the protocol that it impacts, which is RSA. The mitigation strategy is, like we said, quantum safe cryptography. And the point here is that Shore has two different types of functionality and protocols aligned to it. These elliptic curve cryptographies, if you've never seen it, I thought it was very interesting to kind of use that the function of a way, to see how we can encrypt things in that way, because most of quantum is a wave. And so, that's at least how I visualize it. And so I think that if there was a way to continue with this hybrid kind of sense to do midterm solutions, that you should look into what opportunities are there. So Grover's algorithm is an unstructured search algorithm. And when you think about it, I don't think that we have a specific session to explain this in detail, but I'm going to do my best to do it at a really high level. If you've ever played those games when you were a kid where things would pop out and then you would hit them with a big hammer, imagine that all of these are possible solutions. When it comes out and it's not the answer, you hit it with the hammer, and then imagine that all the wrong answers keep going down, and then the correct answer is going to come out higher, so then I know which one it is. The way that Grover's work is almost like taking a means, so cutting in half the ones that are not the correct answer and making the one that is um, taller within higher probabilities. And there's a whole explanation, phase kickback, why this happens mathematically, and it's very beautifully explained by Erica, and I can share that YouTube video in the Discord channel. But what's important to know here is that what it does is it didn't tell you this is the correct answer to the search of your unstructured data. It gives you probabilities, and so you could see to the n, 2 to the n over 2 is what they do. And so this is where they're talking about the length. They're talking about hashing. And if you think about it mathematically, the longer the number, the harder it's going to be to find the result between the multiplication and factorization and division of these numbers. So it's don't know as much about BHT, but it is explained in length there with the hashing functions. So complexity here will have to do with the number of bits, and that maps to the number of your the length keys here. All right. So I'm not sure if I should pause and prepare. Okay. So we're talking here about the computational complexity, and then here's some of the principles about the quantum safe cryptography that I think is interesting. So in cryptography, it's defined as a problem that is NP hard, and it has to do with polynomial. Okay, again, polynomial, right? The how long is it? How much time would it take for us to encrypt? And each additional bit makes it exponentially longer. Do we have public key, private key? What are the combinations? Do we have a way to double check if someone has been eavesdropping, like in the case of BB-85? Sorry, BB-4, definitely have Star Wars in my mind. And so here we talk about the worst case hardness, right? That would be what we need. What would be the maximum of that definition of the problem being NP hard? And then the average case, meaning, if we were to find the private key, what does that look like if, there's just an exposure of the private key? Can that be resolved? How quickly? Can we tell if someone was listening? And so the keys are usually set at random. And so, like I said before, with the definition of the basic, with the initial states, right, for cryptography, a lot of them, you try not to set the hardware at 0. And if you, for example, were using IBM, you would have to use the protocols that they said to make sure that it is random and not set at 0. So you do not have an initial state of exposure. Now, here's some of my favorite things that I think is amazing, in that when NIST put forward some of the algorithms, which we'll go through later, they are they're based on lattice structures, all of them. And what I like about lattice structures is that you can think about a chemical formula and the links between that bind the different elements as the lattices. And the fact that we are looking at cryptography structures with similar structures to the molecular bases, to me, opens so many opportunities between the fields. And so if you start looking at some of the intersection between fields, which is hopefully what we are leaving you with in our program by presenting quantum chemistry, quantum cryptography, and quantum security, that really it's all data, and these algorithms can can be applied across, and how can you take the best practices from one or the other to do that. But this lattice-based cryptography is something that I think is very promising. The learning with errors is something that I think is very real world. And in the case of the quantum, the NISQ era devices, which we are in, which means that there's noise and we need to correct the errors. The fact that it's almost like an Aikido model that it uses that error to learn. And the other aspect I'm going to mention here, and you'll have all the links to explore this, and we're going to give you visualizations on Wednesday of some of these, so you can see a little bit what's happening. But it's pretty interesting to look at the models from a different aspect on where they can be applied also, because not the same cryptographic algorithm is not going to be a proper solution for every system. Just that's a very long story for a different day, but important to keep in mind. Now, the if you see here, this is more for linear code. And then you have here the finite field cryptography hidden field equation scheme. This is incredibly complex. I don't think I could explain it if I wanted to, but the hash-based cryptography is what we were talking a little bit about before. And, again, has to do with the length of bit streams. And there are some models here, lattice-based models that are within the dilithium and crystal families, and then you'll be able, I always think about Star Trek when we talk about that, but you'll be able to see some of the differences in those models and some of the similarities, and they all are lattice structures for NIST. So because of the time, what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to pause my screen, I'm going to share what's going on this week and give our speaker a couple of minutes to get here. So in our Qiskit Fall Fest, we have something that is called purposeful entanglement events. So some of you might be in different locations. If you are in Latin America and you happen to find yourself in Costa Rica this week, I would invite you to please join our in-person events at the Universidad Nacional de Costa Rica in Heredia and our in-person event at el Tecnológico de Costa Rica. So we will be releasing the hackathon on Wednesday, and it is going to be something that we release to all of the participants also there. Oh, wonderful. I'm just double checking Anna's language. All right, we are good to go. Hi, Anna, welcome.
Weird. Can you hear me good like this?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you for joining, Anna. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Anna Beata Kalitz Hadegard. Hope I said that right. She's going to be talking to us about defending networks with quantum. Anna is a CEO of Quantum Security Defense, where her leadership fosters global quantum education and business growth in this sector. She is a leading deep tech startup, Quantum Prime, and another TycoonNet. She holds an extensive academic and practical background in STEM acquired around the world and experience in patent strategies. She serves on the board of advisors and supports students and programs with her mentorship. She won multiple entrepreneurship awards. She hosts weekly webinars and educates industry on quantum and helps defining innovation roadmaps. I just had the privilege of being in Anna's quantum security defense weekly webinars. If you have not checked out the information that they have, please do so. And I'm sure she's going to tell you all about it after her presentation or throughout. But if nothing else, please join me in welcoming Anna. And thank you for being here, Anna.
Thank you for having me. And let me share my presentation. I'm sorry. Okay, now I can actually see properly my window. Um, uh, like this, like this. Do you see it good or?
Yes, I see it. I think you might just want to go to presenter mode and speak.
I would like to, I would like to move it, but let's see if I succeed. Would move it here, and then I can have it in a presenter mode. Did it work?
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
see it full screen? Okay, good. So thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. Also knowing Nidia, so I know that this is amazing opportunity to yes, have it bridging the gap of my own language limitations, and that it will go to a broader audience. I think that's a fantastic initiative. Um, I do lead a quantum security defense, and today I would like to focus on that aspect of um, defending infrastructure. And I specifically will be talking about telecommunication, not because I just really like it, but because telecommunication over years became increasingly important how we live life. And my goal for today is to answer the question why it's so important to defend it. So the quantum technology is not anything new. Dual use technologies started, with a stone that can be used for building and can be used as a weapon. And that, keeping that in mind, quantum technologies, it's not a first quantum revolution. We already had the first one, and that one brought us transistors. It brought us atomic bomb. And both of those technologies, as it is very easy to imagine what came with the nuclear energy and things like that, we know what went wrong, how we were not um, conscious enough about bringing this type of technologies. But so it is bringing actually our transistors. We've created the technologies, and they did impact geopolitics. There is those that have had access to it and those that not, and the capabilities of producing it create also a type of a power that can be used in various ways. And now going into this second quantum revolution, it's very important to remember that the technology we are bringing should serve as humans, and that has to be done in a responsible way. And the responsible way is not only what type of technology and application is there, but also how we distribute access to it. And that's why I think it's so important what Nidya is doing together with EnLuz, because um, equalizing access to technology and knowledge about disrupting technologies is very crucial for sustaining peace and around the world. And if not sustaining, then hopefully regaining it in many regions. So I'm based in Europe, so those rules are me the best known. And I wanted to mention that at least in the European Union, we do treat the quantum technologies increasingly carefully. I would, let's say it like that, and we pay attention to how do we share knowledge, what's being sent over the border, how we collaborate. And there is the EU control list of dual use, and it's been updated quite recently and got way more specific about the amount of qubits and amount of the circuits and so on. And what that means is that at least here in Europe, but so is around the world, there is a debate how to keep international exchange, but also do not expose oneself too much. And at least I'm not going to be speaking about everyone. I'm just going to give you an opinion on how it looks in Europe. In Europe, we have not figured it out. Okay, it's still a very ongoing debate what it really means to be independent, what it means to collaborate internationally. And my goal with bringing it up here is to say that it's very important to engage. So if any of you have opinions about it, coming from the places where you are and how you see those technologies will be impacting, your communities, keep bringing your voices as far as you can, because it has to be taken into account, as I said. Closing the borders and not exchanging information can be equally bad as opening them fully and sending everything. So with that, I want to say about our society, and I would just divide it, that quantum security and defense landscape into three parts, where there is a civil part, industrial, and the military. And each of them have aspects that have to be defended. On the civil part, we have, of course, citizens, they are critical services and public trust. And trust has to be defended. And on the industrial side, we have enterprises, there is critical infrastructure and competitiveness, and that influences the economical stability, that influences the civil part and the citizens. And again, there is a different ways we need to defend and protect those. And then there is the last layer, the military layer, the armed forces, the deterrence, the power projection. And here there are yet again another tools, and securing and defending that layer influences the industry and then influences the civil part. And there somewhere connecting it all, the civil, the industry, and the military, is telecommunication. If you go back to at least when I was a child, but I'm now quite old and none of you probably remember how it is to be born without a phone. But there was a time that people did not have a phone in their hand. And at that time, the amount of nodes in telecommunication system was way smaller. It was much easier to navigate it. Today, each of us have a device in a hand that suddenly opens the door to a bank 24/7 and checks what's on my account. My grandma could not do such a thing. She actually had to go to the bank, stand in the line, put her cash money, give it to a hand to a person. It was totally different ways of buying things, on exchanging goods, on taking loans or governing. We are governing now through phones. The most important conversations happened through telecommunication, and so it is also in military. So it's out there. It connects us on a person in a personal life, but it takes care of absolutely everything of economy, and I say also of the stability of our government. So it has to work, because once it fails, you know, when it works, but when it fails, we will all see it immediately, because it's not it doesn't have to be huge and spectacular when you think like the whole country will go down. But that does not have to happen. It's enough that there is no service to your bank account for an hour, and I can bet you will start to freak out. Why you cannot check your bank account? Why suddenly you cannot pay with your phone in your in a grocery shop? That's a trust into a system that we all rely on. And imagine that suddenly it just doesn't work. It's a little bit like when your power goes down and you're traveling. I always think about that. Like if my phone suddenly goes down, my e-ticket is there. I might not be able to check in on the airplane without it. My whole identity is on a phone. And it doesn't have to take long when people will start to question that type of engagement and be worried. And as I said, trust is something that we have to protect for the civil part. So it's not only hacking and it's not only stealing the money, but simply disrupting that communication is enough to actually cost a lot of economical losses. And there are calculations, and I don't have them on top of my mind, but it's sometimes a billions that are lost just by cutting some minutes of operations. And I just had even interesting discussions because there were big hacks on, for example, retails. And what the answer was is that one can recover the data, one can recover the shame, but going out of operation for a day or two, the economical losses for giant enterprises are sometimes not to be recovered. That will cost them huge amounts. And in the end, it's civils who will lose jobs in those situations. Well, it will hit the public. So it will not change. We will only be more reliant on telecommunication. And I would say that at this moment, there should be no doubt why it's so important to defend our telecommunication infrastructure and make sure that we all have equalized access to it internationally. So how do we protect it and how we used to protect it and how we should protect it? Concerning the time, I'm going to be skipping some technical parts. So we have been relying on a mathematical way of protecting it. When we have difficult enough problems to be solved by our computers in short enough time, and that was creating the cryptographic keys with which we can encrypt our data. Okay, and that's all great until the moment that something can solve those problems. So the big question in quantum is always, what it would take to break our RSA 2048. And there is lots of speculation. There is no easy answer on that, okay? So I just want to leave you with the complexity and the speed of change, how we navigating that answer to that question. So in 2019, we were talking that it will take around 20 million qubits for 8 hours, okay? That will break that type of encryption. Now, this year, the study said that it would be enough with 1 million qubits in the less than a week. So it's of course hard to compare because less than a week, it's not the same as 8 hours, but bear with me. First of all, we went from the infrastructure and the hardware that was 20 million to 1 million. We also, but we still on a time scale that is relevant, okay? 1 week is still short enough for an adversary to disrupt the system, to break and to look on the data that they should not have an access to. The things that influence that is not anymore the progress in hardware, but also in software. You've for sure heard error correction, algorithm effectiveness. All of that influences how we design the tools that can make amazing discoveries, but tools that can also disrupt our infrastructure if they used as an attack. And here is a short feedback on the roadmaps, okay? How the roadmaps of quantum computing progress align with our progress on developing new cybersecurity solutions. So on one side, every now almost a quarter, we have updates. How quickly we're gonna have how big system, and it used to be only coming from IBM. Nowadays, we have various hardware providers that operate on various hardware technologies, okay, that predict uh, accelerated progress to a fault-tolerant computer, or at least the computers that can deliver significant speed up of working on some solutions. And don't be mistaken, when they talk about those problems, some people work on amazing medicines, but some work on amazing toxins. Some work on something that will deliver, something beautiful to the world. Others just plot how to attack the systems. So the problem is not when. The interesting part is that every 4 months, it's faster. They predict that they can deliver it quicker. And of course, part can be hype, but behind every hype, there is some truth. So now, what it means when it comes to our cybersecurity? Well, we are not defenseless. There are already NIST-approved different mechanisms. Okay, the FIPS 203 and 4 and 5 that one can use, so-called post-quantum cryptography, to protect our infrastructure. What's important here for me is to reflect on the roadmaps, how around the world we are advising, and the governments or different institutions advised migration towards that cyber security protection. And that, unfortunately for me, simply make no sense when you look on the roadmaps of quantum computing progress. 2030 suddenly is not good enough if there is going to be a powerful enough computer by the end of 2029. I don't have to be a genius, but something is wrong. And the speed of updating it is not good enough. So even gathering and updating those roadmaps is not fast enough. And I need to also stress that those are just recommendations. They are not rules. Those are not laws. No one have to really oblige to that. It's just recommendation. What would be a good and thoughtful thing to do? That's not how business works. So there is really nothing solid that protects us at this stage. So if you are CISO around the world, you unfortunately quite stressed and maybe doomed, not, but something around that way. It's not only that you will be doomed by what will happen, but you might be simply doomed by the speed at which you will have to act fast to suddenly implement solutions. And that would be responsibility on, unfortunately, very few people that are qualified to do that. We are lacking a workforce to tackle those problems, and everyone is aware that the complexity, will exactly make us quite worried, as that lady on the photo. So there is part when we secure something, and there is part where we defend. And I would like to navigate now this little line. When we, in the times of peace, we secure things. We make them good for the civil application. We make our network resilient from the power outrages, from the attacks, so normal, the crime as usual, That is just part of what the human being. I just heard an amazing comparison that, in old times, one just had to raise a horse and attack a wagon with gold. And nowadays, you just have to sit there with a lot of a big bottle of Coke and just hacks the system. But we as people have not changed. There is criminal activities, and they just part of day as usual. So we do data protection, we do different things to just be able to operate and have our infrastructure going smooth. So our, personal pictures are suddenly not all over, our employee's desk. You don't want that. That's just no fun. But that's nothing with defense. Defending is when you start to secure the military communication, to protect the whole country, the integrity of the governments, the operation of hospitals, and the whole security of uh, top secrets. Okay. That is when you want to have an independent GPS in today's world, because the capabilities of spoofing those signals have been just demonstrated, and they are unprecedented when you can spoof on satellites and take them out of operations by maneuvering your satellites next to other satellites. Those things with a progressing technology became a problem of defending also it's not anymore crime as usual. It starts to be on a much higher level where the telecoms have to be defended. Um, Without too much details, there is part of a hybrid war. Okay, you so to say live in a peaceful times, but there is going a typical cyber intrusions, someone switching stations, someone attacking your ground stations for the satellites. There is also disinformation campaigns where someone can inject lots of fake news into your typical streams of reporting. There is the physical sabotages that can happen, simply cutting the fibers. And we've seen all of that happening uh, around the world, and actually increasingly. Uh, and all of that is typically done to probe and map infrastructure and the vulnerabilities of the society, susceptibility of society to different misinformation, how people react, what do they do. That creates a base of information, and that is already part of a hybrid war. So now what is the role of quantum in that? So part of it is harvest now, decrypt later collection. Any intrusions and any type of spoofing might lead to leakage of data and taking over the data that in the future, when there are those computers, and as we hear, they would be coming much faster than we've predicted, some 15 years ago. So that's already part where quantum computers are used for as a hope of attack. Okay, so you harvest data today in the hope that you can decrypt it and potentially destabilize your the country or enterprise that you are attacking, because when we talk about those attacks and wars, we also having a social shift. Maybe it's worth mentioning it already here. We have a social global shift where there are countries, but there are also corporations. And the way the leadership and governance go is way more than ever influenced by the individual corporations. And then the attacks on those corporations will also be done on the wars between them. We will see the shifts of the power, because when the power shifts from the governments and countries towards the corporations, their way they will compete will also get more aggressive, because they will be fighting on a totally different level. But we have sensing that can be used for the mapping of the telecom infrastructure. We can use also quantum timing for spoofing and jamming, and that is as an adversary. Of course, quantum technologies can be also used to protect that infrastructure. But before getting there, Of course, telecom can be also under war attacks, and here they can be targets of disruption because that cuts off people from communicating. Simply talking to each other during the wartime can already influence how people think, how afraid they are, how quickly they respond to the attacks. That can also lead to how quickly they get access to help, how they rely on the help. That can also simply mean that you can inject into them misinformation during. Again, misinformation can be used very powerfully during the war. We see that actually also happening. Um, and and there is, of course, the physical attacks and simply cutting off some parts from telecommunication. And in today's world, it can be anything like a lack of access to your, security numbers, so that in a hospital they can't identify you. You suddenly might lose an access to the database with your health records or whatnot, and that can be used in a war. As a way of taking advantage. And again, similarly, I don't want to repeat, but of course, now we can use quantum secure links for the telecommunication. They can be used to protect that type of infrastructure, okay, from the adversity, but it can, when you have access to that secure, you also protect yourself from those that want to, regain peace. So the people that are under attack cannot get an advantage and maybe win with the adversaries. So everything has both sides to it. Okay, you can deploy better location and jamming telecom nodes. You can have an independent quantum clocks, for being independent from the GPS signals. But as I showed you earlier, you can also use the quantum timing for creating disruptions in the signals. So again, the quantum comes as a help, but it comes also as an attacker. And now I'm like really bridging the time. So being very conscious of my time, I will
Take your time. We're okay.
Are you okay? Okay.
Yeah, we are totally okay with time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So again, I would the telecommunication part is very easy to say, but there is also parts where quantum computers come as a very interesting tool on analyzing and preparing infrastructure. So the quantum computers can accelerate detection and migration of attacks in ways classical computers, struggle. We can have anomaly detection. A lot of stuff is very similar that you can do with AI. And of course, there is a quantum AI or different solutions that being explored. So if you think like, oh, it's just like AI, a lot of problems would be very similar where quantum computers can add value. So adaptive routing and a spectrum allocation where you can find an alternative of way of communicating in a situation of an attack. But we can also use it already now, the quantum computers, or once they're good enough, of course, and do quantum simulations and the computing to build from a get-go stronger and more resilient telecom. And that means that we can stress test, for example, all the new PQC schemes on a totally different level. We can also use discovering of the new materials that will harden and protect by packaging it different, by not allowing the physical disruptions. Um, we can have network digital twins to, again, simulate, to model attacks and the response to anticipate where we are the most vulnerable. And then also the data integrity verification. Here we can find, the traffic, detecting tampering attempts. All of that can contribute to simply building an awareness about our critical infrastructure that in the times of a hybrid war or a war, we know how we could respond to different attacks to protect the civilians. And um, why it's so important, that always comes in the end, how we want to engage with the world. It All I said is not to scare, when we go and when we communicate, when we connect, there is so much beauty about what we've built with technology, the equalized access to a knowledge, the abundance generally we created uh, as a beautiful side effect of globalization. We created lots of things that have been not there, and we actually brought more people to the table of discussing technologies thanks to it. And it's important to say that in that world, we want to be as transparent as possible, because that's where we can truly make meaningful connections. And we want that. We want to understand people on the other side of the world, because that is the most fundamental thing that will make us to care, to sustain peace with people around the world. If we care and understand and have friends, that is what internet brought us, the possibility of find a soulmate everywhere around the world. And that is that transparency. And the bubble part of it is that you still want to be protected. You still want to have a power that when you share data, that data goes only to people with whom you want to share it. And uh, that is independent of existence of a quantum computer or not existent. It's a fundamental right to be secure with your identity when you're engaging. And we have all an obligation to contribute to that. And one cannot push it on individuals, because we can't do that. I can be, as an adult, I can be conscious about my passwords, how difficult they are. It can be pushed on me. I am adult, I can handle some things. But we have kids interacting via gaming, via education platforms. And there is absolutely no one that should be saying that we should just educate them so they know how to be secure. Now, the responsibility is on the side of infrastructure. The way we interact, it has to be fundamentally safe, because kids are vulnerable to manipulation, and they should be, by the default, protected how they interact in their beautiful bubble. I use plenty of resources and I learn all the time. I just put here, I am extremely blessed with meeting extremely smart people like Nidia herself, that come to my platform and give lectures and share what they work on every single week. And that's a huge resource for the way I create my and knowledge. I of course also read. I wanted to list here few, but there is plenty more books and lots of information online to keep on expanding one's own horizons on that, on many different verticals, not only technical aspects of the of bringing quantum forward. And with that, I would like to say that defending telecommunication infrastructure is so important. Thank you.
Beautiful, Anna. Thank you so much. I always learn something new. And the hybrid war is very interesting, how you're mentioning the geopolitical aspects and the responsibility also in terms of preparation. We need to be mindful of where our effort goes. And like you're saying, people, we are diving into quantum chemistry, and all these dual use technologies could be used exactly for that, for toxins, and we have to have that responsibility to make sure that we come from a responsible place when we are sharing. I don't know. I'm just double checking here. Okay, if there are any questions in our Discord channel, let me just double check. I had disabled the chat by mistake before. So, let's see. Okay, we have a shy crew.
I can see a question here also in the chat
Okay,
from Ali.
go for it.
It's on the workforce. So what individuals can do to continue learning to join the workforce? My advice on that is always taking it from what you want to really bring to this world, and start with what is your unique value. And if you will be bringing that and you will be interfacing quantum in this case, make sure that it makes sense for you, then you will be able to impact it the most. And I am very against that we should all, suddenly learn coding and this is the only way we can contribute. The workforce, so to say, will have plenty of different layers to it, as it is with any other technology. And just to give an example that I thought was so simple and beautiful. You know what was the biggest value from like smartphones? Who benefited actually? That was like very, think about the glass producers.
Cornish, yeah.
You know what? Like I was listening on the lecture and I was like, yeah, because once we had smartphones, suddenly it was so crucial. It didn't matter almost everything else, but the screens were breaking all the time. And who benefited is people that could produce and invent better glass on the screens. It's the contributions that we will be able to make are so complex and will need very individuals. Everything repetitive will be done by AI. So our workforce contributions as humans will have to come really from within, where we want to contribute something very human to it, and where we want to solve the very complex thing of how to deliver something responsibly, how to make it usable, how the phone should fit into a hand, because I don't know if you read all those books about women stuff, how they were, at the beginning, the phones were simply adapted only to a man hand, so they were just so not handy for a smaller hand. All those aspects will need innovation because they will make technology more accessible to more people. And that's what we want. We want more people registered. So when you ask me how, just keep bringing yourself in the most vulnerable way, in the most beautiful way, creative, and you will probably change the world. For undergraduate students, do we need to first do major on a master's program in quantum information science and engineering, considering there are no undergraduate programs for quantum physics here in Africa? I don't know. Okay. I can only tell you shortly that I was studying electronics telecommunication, dropped out, studied computer science, found it very boring, dropped out. Then I studied theoretical physics, cosmology, found it really good. I actually graduated with a bachelor's, so good job. But for my master's, I swapped to nanomaterials and, no, first I swapped actually again to electronics and telecommunication, didn't like it, dropped out. Then I did nanomaterials. Good clap on my shoulder. Actually graduated with masters in that, and but thought that I was not really what I want to do. So did my second master's in quantum field theory, but then swapped and did, and so on and so on. And actually, none of that includes quantum computer stuff. Okay, so 2 years ago when I started to do entrepreneurship, none of that included a master degree in quantum computing. And I think what you have to do is just get curious, learn your parts, and bring it forward. There is no education that you might be able to take fast enough for you to bridge. You should definitely not wait for an undergraduate program in quantum physics to start. Um, get curious, start doing it, teach people, write about it, just have as much fun learning as possible. And you will that way find where you're good at, what makes you happy. And there's nothing you have to. There is, and I think we're going to be seeing more and more disruptions in a classical way of education because it's not fast enough to adapt to a new stuff coming in. So don't wait. Just learn whatever you're excited about and just keep doing stuff. But I say I am probably not what your mother would say. So my mom was not very impressed with how I led my career. Okay, she wanted me to just graduate it. But I think I did just okay for myself. So, it's good for me.
More than okay, spectacular. This funny, Ali is actually material science, so the glass comment was right on point. I'm sure Hallie's like now thinking about how she's going to bring the
Very
next
good.
research. Yeah. So
Any
thank you,
other
Anna, so
questions?
much. And we
No.
really
Okay.
appreciate your time and expertise. And I hope that, everyone took as much as they could from the presentation. I know I did. And we will be transitioning to our next topic. But
Yes.
thank you so much. And
Thank you for having me. It was a
yes,
pleasure
yes,
to be
a
here.
pleasure. Bye.
Enjoy the rest of the program for today. Bye.
Thank you. All right, so Sudikin has, so on the same lines of what Anna was saying, I'm going to share something with you all. And this is usually I put some motivational quotes before our quizzes to kind of help you remember that what we're doing is new for everyone, and that it does take a lot of courage to give yourself the opportunity to succeed in something new. And there's some days things go really well, some days things don't go really well, like bouncing host permissions and recordings and silly things. But the overall thing is that we don't let any of that stop us from trying new things that expand our growth. And so just be on the lookout for the quiz for this week for the quantum fundamentals certification. And while we prepare to have Sadikin continue our journey in the quantum machine learning, quantum kernels aspect, I want to kind of show you high level where we are. A lot of what we've been talking about. We're going to continue quantum chemistry next week. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be releasing one of the hackathons, one of the challenges for which I think is super fun. But you should have the strong basis of the quantum fundamentals in order to be able to just win that rapidly. And next week we kick off with our hackathons, and we have some great content on confidential cubo solvers, which cubo is very important when you are looking at the dynamics of nature that you bring your formulas into. And hopefully we will have the folks that have those career opportunities for you available come and present, and if not, we will be sharing their opportunities, and then we will close with awards. Now, just one more here. So at the end of this, I'm going to be sharing with you the in-person events, but our very only Sudikin Pramanik, and he's going to continue with data and coding. Sudikin, do we still have the Quantum AI Club event in IIT Ropar for the 11th?
Yes, ma'am. And the good news is it is happening tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Yes. And the
So
time is 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. IST offline session.
All right, so here's the events that are happening this week. So we have the first of its kind, Semana Cuántica in Costa Rica. I gotta say, I'm very proud of that. This is what I was attempting to share before that I couldn't. And then we will have the in-person event in IIT Ropar and 2 other universities, Universidad Nacional Costa Rica, Tecnológico de Cartago, and some of our interns and mentors from previous year, current years are going to be supporting the students in their learning there. And so let's looking forward. And then next week, we're going to have the event that is being coordinated by Daniel Ruiz in Buenos Aires and Argentina at the IBM Tower. He, as you know, is one of the founders of Q Now, and they've done an incredible job with their event. I will be sharing it on our platform as well. Everyone has been able to, if you are in Argentina, you can go to our website. It will link you to the sign up. And then for those of us in the Research Triangle Park, we have shifted our venue, and we're looking at potentially the 20th. So more to come on that, on the details. We just wanted a little bit more space. So we will be sharing with you soon. So without further ado, then please, Sudhi, can take us through the content. I cannot hear you. You are on mute. Let me unmute you.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Take us
Am
away.
I audible? Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So all good? Shall I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. So today we will be starting on quantum kernel. So what we have learned till now is what is machine learning, why do we need machine learning, what is classical machine learning. Then next time we did what is data encoding, what are the different methods of data encoding, how do we encode data. There are 8 different methods, which one is useful, which we should go for, which was earliest, and the different advantages and disadvantages each had. Now today is the third portion of it, which falls under quantum kernels. Now, it's very important to understand quantum kernels. So I've already talked about classical kernels a little bit, so that you have a little bit idea of classical kernels, and you also have the idea why do we need the kernel tick. Today, we'll specifically understand that to proceed with machine learning, we have 2 different methods. One is the SVM method that uses the kernel. Another one is the QNN method that also uses the kernel, but not in a direct way, not in an explicit way, but inherently at the end of it. So we won't go there today. We will go there tomorrow, or tomorrow next session when we are having. In this session, we'll be more focused on quantum kernels. So what is a quantum kernel method? For that, we need to first understand what is a classical kernel method. So if you look closely, ma'am, is my pointer visible? Okay, so if you look closely, so we already discussed about a classical kernel. So if I have data point X and Y, and I can somehow put a function on it such that I can change its function and make a new set of values out of that. And to do that, I can do a rate computation, I can do a trig method. Anyways, if we finally map it, so if we are doing a mapping, that can essentially give us a form of kernel. Kernel is nothing but a form of mapping. Okay. So similarly, we did it in the case of classical work. So if we do it in the case of quantum work, then we can say that it is a quantum kernel. So I hope it is clear what is a classical kernel and what is a quantum kernel. Okay. Now let us look at a linear value. So it is a one-dimensional value. If you see, there are 2 levels. One is a blue level, another one is a red level. What we are doing is we are putting a function value here. So what is the function value? We are keeping the x values. Suppose it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are keeping the x values, and We are creating a new data value by x minus a squared. So suppose a be any value, if we just do a square of it, we find out that x minus a squared raises the point values to some new values, right? So what we are doing, we are mapping our x values to a new set of y values. See, this is just the basic part of it. So if you don't understand it clearly, later on you won't be able to understand. So please pay good attention into this part. So what we are doing is we have a value, we put some function on it. So here the function is x minus a squared. So we put the function on it. So the function gives me a new value. So that new value is my y value. So I had the x values, one dimensional. I put the function, I get another set of values. I put that in the y dimension. So x and y, I get a two-dimensional vector. So from a one-dimensional mapping, I get a two-dimensional mapping. I hope it is clear. If anyone has any question, kindly do post it now only, so that if you don't understand it now, it will be very difficult for me to proceed further. This is the extreme basic of it. So yeah, please, any questions? Okay, so I'm good to go. So I understood that what is a one dimensional value and a vector. X can be a vector, so this can be x, a vector. I get a two-dimensional vector by mapping. Simple. Now, so I understand this. Now, can you map this data from 2D space to 3D space? Just try. Can you map this data? So I have given you a mapping function. The mapping function is x square y. So I have a two-dimensional data. I want to create a three-dimensional data. I give you a mapping function x square into y. So x is my first values 2, 1, 3 and 4. Y is my second values 3, 2, 1 and 3. I want to create another value, a z value, by using x square y. Can anyone tell me what will be the x square y for the first value, which is 2, 3? Can anyone tell me? X square y for the first value. Yeah, Bhaskar Reddy. To understand that, these are the basics. You need to go through it. Can anyone tell me? I'll give you 10 seconds only. What will be x square y for the first value, 2, 3? Can you tell me? Anyone? Okay. So let's look into it. So for 2, 3, the value will be 2 square, that is 4 times 3, which is 12. For 1, 2, that is 2. For 3, 1, that is 10. And for 4, 3, that is 48. Now I plot them here. You tell me. Yes, exactly, only one. Thanks. That was the answer. Good. So can you tell me that I have plotted them and I've given label A to these values, B to these values, and I plot them. Can you draw a division function here? Can you draw a straight line here? Can you draw it? See, it's not possible. You can never separate A's from B's by drawing a straight line. You cannot do that. To separate, you may have to draw a curved line that you can draw, but you cannot draw a straight line. Now, to create a division boundary, we need to have a straight line or a plane, a hyperplane, which can differentiate it out very clearly. So what we will do? So we have mapped that. And when we mapped that with the new values 2, 10, 48, and 12, you see, we got a three-dimensional plot, and the mapped values are plotted across the z, and you have the x value and the y value. So you get a 3D plot like this. And so in this 3D plot, see, B's are at the top, A's are at the bottom. So you have a hyperplane. And with this hyperplane, you can easily separate out the two different categories of data. So let's recap what we just did. So we used a two-dimensional point. For two-dimensional points, we label 2 points as A, 2 points as B. We plot that using a 2D plot, and we could not find the division factor. Now, we made a mapping, put that value in the z-axis. Again, we plot that same thing, and we found a hyperplane, a division line, right? So this is how you map your data into a higher dimensional space. So this is known as mapping. This is the basics of mapping. So you map the data, you draw a decision boundary, and to map this data, sometimes it can be computationally very expensive. So you want to put it in higher dimensions, you can try to put it in like 2 to the power 50, but just imagine calculating everything to the power 50. Is it easy to do? No, right? So it's not easy to do. So for that, we need to have kernels. Now, so from here, let us understand what kernel is actually doing and how it is useful in finding out SVMs. Okay. Why is it useful in SVM? So if it is a kernel, we just showed you that we can put a kernel as a function transpose another function, right? So how is that working? Suppose you have some data points x1, y1, like we had a set of data points previously. So suppose you have these data points. Now you can do a prediction ypred from these data points if you have a w and a b vector already known. But the problem is, as in the last data set you had, it is not easy to find out a single line, right? It's very difficult to find out a boundary. It's very difficult to find out a line that will separate them out, right? For that, what you can do is, if you, instead of putting x, put a function of x over there, which is mapped to a higher dimension, then it is easier to find out if you can find out a w dash and b dash. So finding a w and b may not be possible, but finding out a w dash and b dash to a mapped value can be possible, right? So if you do a Lagrangian, taking some alpha as Lagrangian parameters, and find a solution of this Lagrangian as an optimal hyperplane. So this is your optimal hyperplane equation. Then you see that you have a phi x transpose phi. So phi x transpose phi is my kernel. So let me clear these things out once again very simply. So you can map any vector using a function phi x. So you can do a prediction when you map a function to phi x. Now, if you use a Lagrangian and try to get a hyperplane, the equation of the hyperplane has an interesting thing, which is phi x transpose phi x. Now you already know what this phi x transpose phi x is. See, you know this thing. So this is our kernel. So see, at the solution of SVM itself, we have our kernel. So just imagine somehow, if we don't want to do the entire big calculation and we could find a suitable kernel and just put it exactly there at the equation of hyperplane, then it becomes computationally expensive, extremely lighter. So that solves a big problem. So we don't need to do a lot of calculations, just find out the kernel, take the kernel, put it there, job done. So classical kernel could be helpful in this area. And in fact, other than linear SVMs, if we talk about polynomial SVM or RBF kernel SVM, they use this kind of technique only. Okay. Now the problem with this is, how do we find the optimum kernel if we have a large amount of data? It's very difficult. So we will go into it slowly. So this is your kernel, right? Okay, fine. Now, what is a quantum kernel and what is a quantum kernel method? Now, so you found out the optimal hyperplane, right? Now, just look at ypred. So if you look at ypred and if you want to find out the prediction, now even in the prediction also, you have the kernel. So let me again make it simpler by doing another recapitulation. That is, so you had your kernel. To find out the hyperplane, you saw that there is a kernel function included inside the hyperplane equation. So if you compute a kernel, it becomes easier. Now, finding out the hyperplane is the form of training part. You can think of it as a training part. Now, if you want to take the prediction out of it, then also you need to solve another equation, which is this equation. In this equation also, you can find that there is a kernel. So if we compute the kernel, if we could compute the kernel, we can find out the inference also, train the model also, and at the same time we can get the prediction out of the model also by computing a defined set of kernels. So kernels will be useful in both of the factors, and this is the inherent insight of it. Now, let us go for the quantum part. So, as in classical part, we did a function mapping. In quantum part, last day we taught about encoding. So, if we do encoding, we are just doing a quantum mapping. So, a quantum kernel is nothing but a function inner product space of two quantum states. So, if I take this one as a one state, then these two are the inner product form of this one state. Is that clear? If you take this as any state phi x, this is the inner product form of that state phi x. Okay. Now, so as we can write our encoding by a unitary mapping, so unitary mapping over this state. So what will be the bra of it? So bra of it will be bra of that vector on the unitary dagger. So see, if you do bra of it, this becomes unitary dagger over the bra of the vector. So it is kth of the vector, the unitary matrix. You get the bra of the vector and the unitary matrix and the bra of the vector. So you get this state. So you can write a quantum kernel in the form of your bra state, u dagger u, and your kth state. Okay. So this is how it looks. So schematically, what do we do is that we make two blocks. So this block is for u, this is u dagger, and we put our states here and we do the measurement. Simple. So if we draw an analogy here, so for the data space, we have the same data space. In classical feature space, what do? We use a classical function and map it. In a quantum feature space, what do? We use a quantum function and map it. Okay, whatever I taught you till now, you could find it in IBM Quantum in different books also. I personally liked the explanation in www.quad.group. So it's fantastic. You can also go through it. I'll share the slide. You will have the reference link here also. Okay. So first thing is we understood what is a kernel. We understood why we need kernel. Then we understood why kernel is essential for SVM training, SVM prediction. Then we understood if we are using a quantum kernel, how can we represent that? So till now our job is this much. Okay. Now let us go into implementation of the kernel. So if you have to implement the kernel, you need to go through Qiskit patterns. As I already said last day, Qiskit patterns follows by 4 steps. First step is mapping the data to quantum states. We already did that. We did encoding. So by that we map the data to quantum states. Then what? Then we optimize the circuit for hardware. So why do we need to optimize? It's very important. Suppose you are working on a real quantum hardware. Now that quantum hardware is designed to work with certain kind of gates. It cannot work with all kinds of gate. Okay. So last day we talked about ZZ gate, but ZZ gate is transferred to a combination of CNOT gates and a RY gate. That means one CNOT, RY and CNOT from the ZZ gate. But ZZ gate is already a type of gate, but that could not be implemented directly as a ZZ gate into a hardware. So quantum hardware needs to work with its available set of instructions, with its available set of gates. It cannot work with any gate that I give. So what can Qiskit do? Qiskit can convert your code into that hardware's set of instructions, that hardware's available gate, so that it could be run on that hardware. I hope it is clear to you. So first you map your data to a quantum data, then you use an optimizer so that your data could be used on the given hardware. And over that, that hardware may be prone to different kinds of noises, different kinds of fidelity problems. So different levels of error mitigations can be done, level 1, level 2, level 3. So optimization level up to 3 can be used as of now, and you can optimize your circuit for better results. Okay. Then what you do? Then you just 1 second. Yeah, then what you do? Then you call a sampler and you run it on the back end, and then you do the post processing. Okay. Now, let me give you a question. Consider two data points. One is x1 equals 1 and x2 equals 3. Okay. So if you say that our kernel is kx comma y, which is x into y plus 1, suppose this is our defined kernel. Can you compute the 2 cross 2 kernel matrix? Okay, can you tell the first element of the kernel matrix? I'll give you 10 seconds. Your function is x into y plus 1. Can you give the first element? 10 seconds I'll give. You can of course try. See, you can be wrong, you can be right, doesn't matter. 4, okay. Okay, only one Dasgupta 4. Okay, anyone else? 4. Thank you, Bhavna. 4. Yeah, that is the right answer. No, because your first element will be x1 is 1, again x1 is 1, that is 1 comma 1 is 2. Then 1 into 1 is 1 plus 1, that is 2. So your first element will be 2. Okay, what will be the second element? Then it is 1, it is 3. So 1 into 3 plus 1, how much it is? 4. That is your second element. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to all of you for trying. Good try, very good try. See, it's a hard topic. You are trying and you are going close. That's a fantastic improvement. It is a hard topic. It is not easy. Trust me, I'm telling you. But you are doing great. You are doing great. Okay, so what is the third element? That is 3 into 1 plus 1. And what is the fourth element? 3 into 3 plus 1, that is 10. So this is your 2 cross 2 kernel matrix. I hope you found out a kernel matrix. Now, you will observe an interesting thing. Did you find any symmetry? Has anyone found any symmetry? Can you tell me, where did you find the symmetry? It's an easy question. Try. You can be right, you can be wrong. Try it. Did you find any symmetry? 10 seconds again. Yeah, okay, you have defined x1 and x2. x1 and x2, you put that as x comma y because the values are always not constant. We're changing it, right? That is why. But fantastic, you have done great. Don't worry. Yeah, did you find a symmetry here? Yes, okay. Can you tell where? Along which line? Diagonal element 4. Okay, so diagonal element 4s are same. So can you tell me which is the symmetry line? Yeah, fantastic, David. 4 and 4. Fantastic. All of you, fantastic. Can you tell me where is the symmetry line? Can I draw a symmetry line? Yeah, Nadia ma'am, you are doing great. Can you draw a symmetry line? 2 and 5. Yeah, Bhavna. Thank you. That's the answer. So this is your line of symmetry. So one thing you need to understand about kernel matrix is if you could compute one half of it, you already compute the other half. So first thing is 2 and 10. Yeah, 2 and 10. Okay, I understand. So the first thing is if you could do a direct computation, it becomes computationally expensive. So you don't want to do that. For that, you came back to kernels. So kernels are easy to compute. At the same time, you have another more added advantage with kernels. You compute only half of it, then you get the other half. So it's symmetric. So that's another computationally lighter thing. So see how kernels are so. No, nothing to be sorry. It's fantastic, Bhavna. It's fantastic. You tried. No, sorry, nothing. You say the answer. It's wrong. It's good. It's right. It's still good. Okay. Wrong answers are more preferred so that I can tell. Otherwise, I have nothing to say. Okay. Okay. So now you understood the importance of kernels. Let us go again. So now we need to understand the types of kernel. There are two types of kernel. One is a single kernel matrix. Another one is a full kernel matrix. Yeah. So let us get into single kernel matrix. So what is a single kernel matrix? A kernel matrix with only one element, that is 1x1 kernel matrix. That means I give you two vectors. If you could find only one value of that vector, that is a single kernel matrix. So if you look carefully here, I have one data set on the top line, which is my vector 1. I have another data set on the bottom line, which is my vector 2. If I could get one value out of it by any kind of kernel computation or by any kind of mathematics, that is my single kernel matrix. So in this case, see, I took those two values and I simply did a vector sum kind of thing. And that gave me a single value, which is minus 0.9. So that is minus 0.91. So this single value is my single kernel matrix value. I hope I'm clear. So we got to understand what is our single kernel matrix value. Now, in a 10 qubit quantum circuit, generally, how many different states are there that you could possibly measure? Can anyone tell me? In a 10 qubit quantum circuit, how many different states are there that could possibly be measured? Everyone, try. I'll give you 10 seconds again. Try. Yeah, try. Yeah, all of you. 1024. Okay, I saw who answered that. I saw who answered that. Yeah, anyone else? Okay, Daniel. I am seeing who are answering these things. Okay, nice, nice. Okay, on even 102. Yeah, so that is the right answer. 2 to the power 10, which is 1024. So see, we can put 10 measurement heads. So it may look like we are only measuring 10 values, but that is not the answer. We are measuring actually 2 to the power 10 values. Okay, so let us go to next question. Now understand the question carefully. Understand the question carefully. So let us suppose that someone new to quantum computing attempts to use a quantum circuit that has very high 2 qubit depth. Now, before going to the question, let me say why we are more concerned about 2 qubit gate is 2 qubit gates are more prone to lose their information. Okay, so we don't want to have many 2 qubit gates. With the development of more better quantum hardware, yes, of course, we can go to better qubit depths, more 2 qubit depths, but as of now, we don't want it. Okay, now, so what they do is they do not use error correction, error mitigation. So they do not use error mitigation. That means what the single qubit performs, that will be carried forward. Okay, let us further suppose that this result in an error rate of 10% on each qubit. If the true error-free kernel matrix element corresponding to this circuit is very large, say 1, what would be the probability of measuring all 10 qubits to be in the state with every qubit 0? Let me simplify it. You have a qubit, you give an information of 1, suppose. When you measure it, you get a 10% loss. So how much is left? Yes. So how much is left? That is 0.9, right? Now they are saying that if it is a 10 qubit state and you want to measure that, so what will be your final accuracy on the qubit that you are measuring? So after it passes through all the 10 qubit states, all the 10 qubit possibilities, what will be your final state? 10 seconds. Dhawal has given a fantastic answer. Anyone else? 10 seconds. 1 qubit loses 10%. If you go through all combinations of 10 qubits, how much are you left with? How much accuracy are you left with? Okay, that was an interesting question, I get. Yes, okay. So see, that is 0.9 to the power 10, which is 35%. Okay, so what does you get from here? You get that if you're using a deep circuit with many number of CNOT gates, then you lose the information without error mitigation, and your accuracy automatically drops to only 35% of your initial value when you are using only 10 qubits, which is nothing to do a good circuit computation. Okay, a real life work cannot be done in a 10 qubit thing. A real life big work, suppose you're working on images, you cannot do it in a 10 qubit thing. So you will have only 35% of it left in the real quantum hardware as of now without error mitigation. I hope you like this question. Can we have an n-qubit state that is okay? Yeah, I'll get to it after I finish it. Thanks Anirban for the question. I'll get to that. Okay, now let us go to a full kernel matrix. So what is a full kernel matrix? So for a single kernel matrix, we got one value. Then for a full kernel matrix, we'll get the full values. So suppose you have value 1 to 3, you compute a full kernel matrix and you get all the possible combinations of it. And here also, if you look closely, see, here also if you look closely, you will find out that 1 into 2 and 1 into 2, that is 2 and 2 symmetric, 3 and 3 symmetric, 6 and 6 symmetric. You can always draw a diagonal line and compute half of it and get the kernel out of it. So that is your full matrix. So can you tell me what will be the size of a full matrix when you want to test data with 10 values for a field matrix which has been created for training with 30 values? Let me simplify the question. So you have two parts. First, you need to train your model. Second, you need to get the prediction out of your model. To train your model, you used a 30 vector size data. To test your model, you are using a 10 vector size data. Now, your question is, if you create a kernel matrix for testing, what will be the size of the kernel matrix? Can you tell? 10 seconds again. What will be the size of your kernel matrix? Anyone? Okay, let's see. So your kernel matrix will be a 10 x 30 kernel matrix. Okay, so this is your full kernel matrix, the top one, the top left one, and the bottom one is another full kernel matrix, but this is for training, this was for testing. Now, let me take you to the code implementation of it. So first I told you about single kernel matrix. So this is your single kernel matrix. You saw our data in the single kernel, this was this data. Okay. So what you do is
Can you scroll up so we can make it a little bit bigger?
yes. Is it clear now?
Better. Yes, way better.
Yeah. So this was that data which we just worked with a little bit ago. And what we do is we first need to encode the data, as I said, to compute the kernel, you need to first encode the data. And for Qiskit patterns, the first topic is to encode the data. So you encoded the data. After that, you did a U dagger U. That is, you did a unitary overlap. So this was the unitary overlap that calculates the U dagger U. So this thing calculates your kernel. This thing calculates your kernel. Now you measured that. So when you measure it, it will measure all the possible values. So suppose if I have 10 values here, 0 to 9, so that means it will measure 2 to the power 10 values. Okay, that is 1024 values. And as we did, we need to go through optimization, otherwise we lose the information. So if we go through optimization, create a preset pass manager, take the optimization level as 3, decide your backend, and you run it, and you find out how many CNOT gates you have. So for me, the CNOT gate was 1, and run it on the primitives, take the number of shots, you get the counts. I'm just plotting the counts after going through the real hardware. And we found out that the simulator count was 0.6916 and the real hardware count was 0.6743. Now, let me tell you one thing. Before calculating this, when we went without the optimization, it was around 0.42. Okay, it is not here that the previous code that you saw, some problem is there, but here the value was 0.42. Anyways, so again, if we go for the plot distributions, we find this kind of thing. Now, what I told you is that I told you about a single kernel matrix. That means it will give a single value. And the best possible place to get that single value is the 0, 0 vector point. Okay, 0, 0 vector point, or you can say the 0, 0 state point. So if you look closely here, the 0 vector is your maximum vector and your probability is 0.674. See, 0.674. The probability you get it here. So what quantum computing does is, instead of calculating the entire state space, it does an approximation kind of thing and computes your most probable state 2 to the power 10 values simultaneously at the same time. And the beauty of it is, as we are doing the entire thing at the same time, your computational load is extremely lowered. Okay, that is the beauty why we use quantum computing for kernel computations. So if you have to do it by the classical method, you need to do individual multiplications every time to do the entire matrix. So if it is a big matrix like 1024 by 1024 matrix, just imagine how many number of calculations you need to do. Quantum, no need. You define a circuit. You define a circuit which is your this circuit. You define a circuit. You measure this circuit. Just run 1,000 or 10,000 shots, you get a value. The most probable value on the 0, 0, that will be your kernel value. See how easy it is and how fast it is. And if you take more number of states, like 2 to the power 15, 2 to the power 20, which is impossible for a classical computer to compute, it's very difficult. Quantum does it just like a jiffy, because 20 qubit is nothing to work on a quantum computer. Okay, so this is the beauty of quantum computing for calculating your kernel. Okay, so I told you about the single kernel matrix. Now let me also, these are different methods, so you can go through it. I'll share the link. Ma'am has already shared the link last day. So now I'll take you to the full kernel matrix. Now, so last time I calculated one value only. What full kernel matrix will do, it will calculate the entire matrix space which will be used in SVM. So process is same. We downloaded a data, put that data into different values, calculated their levels, separated them out, and created the kernel matrix. And after that, we defined our own entangling map. So this is important. So you can use ZZ feature map, which was previously available on any other encoding methods, or you could create your own encoding method. So here we created our own encoding method with our custom encoding scheme. Okay, so this is our own encoding method. After that, we optimized the problem and we found out our kernel matrix. So when you are looking at your kernel matrix, see, when you are computing your kernel matrix, I have used a state vector sampler here. You can also compute it on a real hardware. So it is run on a sampler on a simulator. So you get your entire kernel matrix while training. Okay. And we say it as pre-computed because we know that if we could find out the kernel, we can put it at various places and get the value out of it. So if we have our kernel, we can get the value out of it. So this is our full computed kernel, and this is the kernel while we are trying to get the test result out of it. So for the test result, we have certain around 30 values, and for the train data, we have around 90 values. So see here, these are 90 by 90 kernel matrix for the train computation, and this is 30 by 90 kernel matrix for the test computation. And this is all. There is some other things also. You can go through the IBM quantum module and you will find it there. Yeah. So thanks to all of you, and yeah, I'm done here. Any questions?
Oh, amazing. Well done.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, okay. Any questions? Okay, one question was there. Can we have Achha, Dhawal already answered that. Okay, fine. So that's done.
No,
Okay.
no, no, Sudikin. I think the question is different. Like he is asking what happens in real life. So I answer only the theoretical part. So please extend that answer, please.
Okay, I'll try my best. Can we
Yeah,
have a
yeah, yeah.
n qubit state that is n power n states theoretically possible by quantum mechanics, but in real life be it possible? In real life, yes, it is possible, because as we already know, the amount of scaling that we could do on a Qiskit platform is proportional to the amount of qubits that could be available on a hardware. So recently, as you know, in a 10-20 years gap timeline, we can have billions of qubits. So if your n scales any value less than infinity, then it is possible. So maybe it is not possible right now. Right now we have around 156 qubits, but soon it is going to skyrocket. In, I'm saying, 10-15 years, it's going to skyrocket, and then we could have like billions to the power billions. If you have billion qubits, then billion to the power billions, it is possible. If you have 10 qubit, 10 to the power 10 is possible, right? So yes, it is possible, not right now, but in near future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sudikin. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you, Danielle, for interpreting this time. I will be doing that for you next time. So thank you very much. And for everyone for your grace and time today with some of the technical issues. And as we said, if you are in different places, make sure if you are in IIT Ropar that you attend this great meetup that is being hosted by Sudikin and the Quantum and AI Club. And then let me just pause the recording.